Base hay.
Yeah.
Base hay. One who extinguishes a lamp because he feels idolatrous, because of bandits, because of melancholy, or a sick person may fall asleep. He is, or if a fifth, so that a sick person may fall asleep, he is exempt. But if he does so to spare the lamp, to spare the oil, to spare the wick, he is liable. The Yossi exempts in all these cases except that of the wick because he makes it into charcoal.
Okay, just to quickly interject, because we didn't learn this yesterday together, but this is teaching us the halachas of melacha she'ena tzricha legufa, when you're doing the melacha not for the purpose of the melacha, but for something else. So, like extinguishing the lamp. Why is extinguishing a malacha bichlal? Because it makes a nice, because that's what you do. Erev Shabbos, you light the candles and you put them out because it's nicer to light something when it's had been burned a little bit. Okay, but persons who's extinguishing this is not doing it for that purpose. He's doing it because he's worried about this, worried about that, and in fact, some of these cases are even pikuach nefesh, where lechatchila you're allowed to do it.
No,
Um,
no.
so just mentioning that it's a machlokes Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Yehuda, where Rabbi Yehuda says no, you still have even if you do a malacha, even if you didn't need it for the sake of the malacha. And Rabbi Shimon says this is the
No.
opinion of Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Yossi is even more makil than Rabbi Shimon, because even the ones where he's sparing the oil or sparing the candle, that's a positive thing. Oh, I'm putting this out because I want to save the oil. That, according to Rabbi Shimon, would be malacha shetzricha lagufa, and you'd be chayav on that. But Rabbi Yossi is saying you're pater on all of these, except for the one where you're making the charcoal, because there
Charcoal.
that's very specific about what the malacha is for. And the
Right.
halacha is not like Rabbi Yossi, it's like Rabbi Shimon in this case. Okay.
Okay. But three transgressions, women die during the childbirth because they are not careful regarding laws of Nida, Chala, or kindling the Sabbath light. A man must say three things in his home on the eve of the Sabbath just before dark. Have you tithe? Have you prepared the Erev? Kindle the Sabbath light. If there is doubt whether it is dark or it is not dark, we may not tithe definitely untied produce, nor may we immerse vessels, nor may we kindle the lights, but we may tithe the Mai, make an Erev and insulate hot food. I remember
Okay.
another mission where it said these things that we should do right before Shabbos, but it also said something about checking your pockets or something like that. I remember some Mishnah like that.
Well, um, in terms of checking your pockets, I mean, there were the ones where the tailor's not allowed to go with the needle tucked into his shirt and the
Right, right, right.
um.
I thought maybe I'm wrong, but okay, all right.
I think
You
that's
have Gimel Aleph. Okay.
yeah. Okay, Gimel Aleph. Okay, Akira. So now we're going to halachas of Bishul.
Mhm.
And the kira is a stove, is one of the ancient stoves. They would have a sort of a clay base with two holes in it, and you'd put the fuel at the bottom of the thing, so it would get hot underneath, and you'd have a heat coming from underneath onto the pots. Now, when you got two, there's a distinction made between the ones that have got two, which is called a kira, and a kupach, which has got one. And they've got different halachas, as we're going to see in the Mishnah over here. So first of all, we're talking about the kira, which has got two holes on it. Okay. Kirsch Hisikua Bakash Uber Gavava. Kash is straw and Gavava is stubble. The straw being the remnant of what's harvested. When you harvest the wheat, you cut it off from the stems, and whatever's attached to the top part is called the straw, and whatever's left in the ground and then is going to die and get uprooted, and that's called stubble. And all of it
Right.
can be used for fuel if you're in a pinch. It doesn't last very long, and that's the point over here, is
Mhm.
that you set fire to it and it's gone. Okay, so but it'll give you a very short-lived flame. So if you're taking a whole big pile of straw and stubble and putting that into your stove. Okay. Nosnin alea tavshil. So that is mutar to put on a tavshil that you're going to carry on into Shabbos. It's going to carry on cooking into Shabbos. Okay. The gefes of the eitzim, however, if you're using gefes is they translate it as mark, but
Right.
it's the leftover things of like olives that have been squeezed. They'll burn. Um,
Hmm.
but and they'll burn for longer because they still got a little bit of oil inside them. Eitzim obviously is wood, and that's your typical lechatchila fuel for lighting a stove, and that's gonna last a long time. Lo yitain, you're not allowed to put a pot on top of that stove. Ad sheyigrof or ad sheyitain es ha'efer. You've got two choices. See, the problem over here is that when you've got fuel burning, um, as you've seen in a fire, as wood burns, it forms a layer of ash on top of things. So if you want to get the heat out, you've got to stoke it up and knock off the ash and in order
Right.
to get it hot again. Now, if you do that on Shabbos, you're chayav straight away
Right.
for Mavia for lighting.
Right.
Okay, so we have a problem with this with you putting a if you put a you lit the fire erev Shabbos and you put your tavshil on top of the stove, but there's a concern that you're going to look at this. Oh my gosh, it's almost time for Shabbos meal. Now quickly, it's not cooked properly. Let's stoke it.
Right.
And that's the concern over here. So how do you make sure that somebody doesn't do that? You've got two options: either make it much worse or much better. Um, so one option. So the one thing you can do is igrof. You have to sweep it away. You have to absolutely you have to clear away all of your wood from the center of the stove. You push it off all to the sides. So that if you forget yourself and you say, "Oh, I need to stir it up," and you look inside and say, "Hey, where's all that wood? Why is it all around?" It's like, "Oh my gosh, it's Shabbos. Yes, I shouldn't be doing this." Okay, so you pushed it all to the side so that it doesn't so that
Doesn't burn.
it
Too
doesn't burn as
much.
well. Okay, or actually tenis aefe, or what you can do is is take a bunch of extra ash and throw it over your fire. So
That
so once again that gives you an extra cause to think I don't know why I said better or make it much better or much worse. I was just thinking like you're putting more stuff in making more stuff or making less stuff is probably more accurate. But if you put a nice big pile of ash over your fuel, then if you forget yourself and open up to the oven to stoke it and you say what the heck is all this ash doing in here? And you say, "Oh wait, I put it there for a reason to remind me it's Shabbos."
that's right.
Okay,
Right.
so that's what that it's basically a siman to help you remember that you shouldn't. This isn't a normal day, and you shouldn't be stoking your fire. Okay, and this is
Yeah.
now okay to put a tavshil on it before Shabbos. That's still going to cook into Shabbos. Beis Shammai omrim chamin aval lo tavshil. Beis Shammai says that this heter is only for water, not for food. Okay. And Beis Hillel says, chaminu tavshil. And of course, that's our halacha, is that you can do both. There's no real difference between the two. Um, Beis Shammai omrim notlin aval lo machzirin. Says Beis Shammai, okay, once you've got your hot water, because remember Beis Shammai only allows hot water. If you take your hot water off the stove on Shabbos, you can't put it back. Okay.
If
Beis
you have
Hillel
hot
omrim af
soup,
machzirin. Huh?
if you have hot soup, you're having that for your Friday night,
Right.
but you want to put it back, you have to hold it. You can't. You have to take
Right.
it
And
off
that's
and hold it.
exactly
Right.
what Beis Hillel is saying is that you're allowed to put it back under the conditions that A, you had kavana that you were going to return it, B, that you didn't let go of it.
Right. Right.
And there's some conditions, there's some who are making that either one of those conditions would be sufficient.
Right.
And just by the way, this halacha applies to food that is not 100% cooked already, or is not at all, sorry, is not it's yeah, it's food that's not 100% cooked and it's not 0% cooked.
Right.
This is why we have a heter for cholent, because when you
Right.
put the cholent in Erev Shabbos, it's completely raw. Nobody's going to look at it and say, "Oh, I better stoke the fire for tonight." You leave it overnight, and it doesn't matter whether you stoked the fire or didn't stoke the fire. It'll be ready for lunch, and that's the point.
I thought it had to be ready to at a certain point. The meat had to be
Yeah.
um, to a certain point. Couldn't be just raw
Machal
meat.
ben Drusai. There's the measure of Machal ben Drusai. If it's cooked to a certain degree before Shabbos, then you can leave it on the stove and that's fine.
Right.
It's when it's
Right.
in that sort of middle ground where you could get it to fully cooked by Friday night. and that's when you've got the problem that you might stir the flames.
That's
Okay,
right.
let's move on. Tanur shehisi bekasha begvara. Now you've got an oven. So the oven, that's that conical thing where you've got where things are cooked on the inside of the oven, not on the
Uh-huh.
top. Okay, and and in that's a lot hotter because it's conical. There's not as much room for for the heat to escape. So the inside is a much more intense heat.
Right.
Now,
Right.
even if you've got a straw or stubble on the inside, lo yitain bein mitocha bein me'al gabav. You cannot put anything not inside, not on top of it on Shabbos, because this is an intense heat, and we're just not going to allow that because it's you, even if you pushed it over to the side, you might come to stoke the flame.
Okay.
Okay, and that's even with straw and stubble. So kal v'chomer with wood or with mark.
Right. Right.
Kopach. Now the kopach is the middle case. That's where you've got a single plate on the stove, a single hole in the stove. So it's more intense because there's only one hole letting the heat out, but it's not as intense as an oven because it's intended for things to be put on top rather than on the inside. Okay. Kupach she'esikur b'kasha b'gvava. If you put it in if you put fueled it with straw and stubble, harei ze kakirayim. Then it's like then it's like a stove. So with two, in other words, you're allowed to put things on top of it as long as you do scraping it or ashes. But gefes of eitim, however, if you put it with wood or with mark, tanur, it takes on the din of the tanur, and you cannot put anything inside it or on top of it.
Right.
Ein nosnin beitza betzad hameicham bishvil shetis galgel. Now, this actually we're going to be dealing with toldos ha'esh and toldos hachama. Instead of the ash itself, you're not putting it directly on the fire, but what you're doing is you've got a kettle that was heated by a fire. Now the outside is very hot, so you take it off, and now you say, oh, let me put my egg next to this thing to cook. And toldos ha'esh is basically exactly the same as ha'esh. You'd be
Right.
chayav for cooking with that as much as you would be for putting it on the fire directly. But then you've also got chama. Okay, so that's the first thing that you just read is putting the egg by the side of the kettle, bishvil shetis galgal, so that it'll roll. Why do we say so that it'll roll? Well, if you take a raw egg and you try and spin it, it doesn't spin very well. And that's how you tell if an egg is cooked or not. You try and spin it. So if it's cooked, then it'll spin nicely.
Right. Right. Right.
Okay. V'lo yafki ena b'sudarin. And what you also cannot do is let's say you've got a bunch of scarves that were put in the sun. So that you got some nice hot scarves that have been out baking in the sun, and now you want to wrap those around the egg so that the egg will start to cook. Okay, and you say, oh, if you cook the egg directly in the sun, it's 100% mutar. You're allowed to do that lechatchila on Shabbos. But on something that's heated by the sun, that you can't do. It's a gezerah because it looks like toldos aish.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
and that would be asami doraisa. So you cannot wrap your scarf and take the heat from a secondary source of heat. Rabbi
I always
Yossi
wanted to make.
Aizer.
I always wanted to make that egg on top of the car. So you can put it out
Yeah,
in the sun.
yeah. Um, Lo yatmi nene b'chol u'ba'avak drachim b'shvil shetitzle. And also, you cannot put it into the sand or the avak drachim
Dust.
around dust around the side of the where the sun has been baking. Bishvil shetitzale. Again, because that is called toldos achama,
Yeah.
and we have a gezerah on toldos achama because of toldos ha'esh. Okay. Let's do Chazaras.
We finished already?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Finished. Okay. All right. Sorry. Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. Cool. Uh, Gimel, Yud Aleph. Yud base, good Aleph. Yud base.
Yud base, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. In what respect did the Bikurim are accounted? In what state did they say that Bikurim are accounted the priest's property? In that he may buy with them bondsmen on land and non-kosher animals, and a creditor may take them for his death, or a woman her ketubah or a cholesterol, but Rabbi Yehuda says one may only give them to a chaver and as a favor. The sages say one gives them to the men of the guard, who divide them among themselves as with the holy things of the temple. Aphrodite is in some ways like men, in some ways like women, and in some ways like men and women, and in some ways like neither men or women. How is he like men? He conveys uncleanness with the white like men and dresses like men, and like men he takes a wife, but is not taken as a wife. And his mother observes on his account the clean blood days for males, and the like men may not be alone with women, and like men he is not maintained together with the daughters. And like men he may not transgress the law of you may not round, and neither may you mar the corners of your beard, and you may not defile yourself with the dead, and he is liable for all the commandments of the Torah like men.
Okay.
Okay.
Challah.
Uh, 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 Reb Eliezer says it may be taken from the clean for the unclean. How? Clean dough and unclean dough. He takes the measure of challah from the dough and from which no challah has been taken and puts less than an egg's bulk in the middle, in order that he take from that which is nearby. But the sages forbid. One may eat a chance meal from the dough until it is rolled with wheat until it has been kneaded into a cohesive lump with barley. Once he has rolled out the wheat and kneaded into a cohesive lump of that of barley, one who eats of it is liable to the death penalty. As soon as he pours the water, she lifts off her challah, provided there are not 5/4 of flour there. If her dough became medima before she rolled it out, it is exempt because meduma is exempt, and after she rolled it out, it is liable. If she is doubt as to uncleanliness arose about before she rolled it out, she may be made in uncleanliness, but after she rolled it out, it must be made in cleanliness.
Yeah. Shabbos.
Okay. Okay. Well, if one clips fines or cuts reeds, whereas Hodosi Agili says he must keep distant 1 handbreadth. Rabbi Kiva says he cuts in his usual manner with an axe, a sickle, a saw, or whatever he prefers, and a tree which split may be tied up in the 7th year, not so that it should heal, but that it should not continue. From when on does one eat tree fruits in the 7th year? From unripe ones when they are reddened. But one may eat his bread with them in the field. Once they began ripening, he may take them into his house. So also in the other years of the 7-year cycle, he is liable to tithes. Unripe grapes, which have once they have produced liquid, one may eat his bread with them in the field. Once they have ripened, he may take them into his house, and so in the other years of the 7-year cycle, he is liable to tithes. Okay, and we have para. Yud Aleph Gimel. Pressed figs of truma that fell into mechatas, and he took and ate it. If its volume is that of an egg, whether it is tamei or tahor, the water is rendered tamei, and the person who eats it is liable to death. If its volume is not like that of an egg, the water remains tahor, but the person who eats it is liable to death. Reb Dosi says, if it is tahor, the water remains tahor. A person who is tahor from mechatos may immerse his head and the greater part of his body in mechatos is rendered tamei. Whatever requires immersion in water under biblical law requires tummy sacrificial food, tummy chulin, and second tithe, and is forbidden in regard to entering the temple. After immersion, it renders tummy sacrificial food and disqualifies truma. These are the words of Reb Meir, but the Chachamim say it disqualifies sacrificial food and truma, and is permitted with regard to chulin and second tithes. And if he entered the temple, whether before his immersion or after his immersion, he is liable. Whatever requires immersion in water under rabbinical law renders tamei sacrificial food and disqualifies truma, but is permitted with regard to chulin and second tithe. These are the words of Reb Meir, but the Chachamim forbid in regard to the second tithe. After his immersion, he is permitted with regard to all of them, and if he comes into the temple, whether before his immersion or after, he is exempt.
Yeah.
Okay, Yud Aleph Chet. If one cooked in it sacred and non-sacred meat, or the meat of most holy offerings and of offerings of lesser holiness, if there is enough of them to impart flavor, the less stringent ones must be eaten in the manner of the more stringent ones, and do not require purging and rinsing, nor do they disqualify by contact. If a wafer comes in contact with another wafer, or a slice of meat with another slice, neither the entire wafer nor the entire slice is forbidden. Only the place which is absorbed is rendered forbidden. A temple yom and one who locks atonement do not claim a share in the offerings to eat that night. An Onan may touch, but he may not offer, and he does not claim a share to eat that night. Kohanim who are blemished, both those in permanent blemishes and those with only passing blemishes, claim a share and eat, and they may not offer. Whoever is not fit to perform the service does not share in the offering meat, and whoever has a share in the meat has no share of its hides. Even one who was tummy at the time of the blood was thrown, and Tara at the time the fats were burned, does not claim a share in the meat, as it says, the one from among the sons of Aaron who offers the blood of the shalom offering and the fat, the right thigh shall be his as a gift portion. Whenever the altar does not require the right to the meat, the Kohanim did not acquire the right to hide. As it is said, Kohanim, a Kohen who offers a person's olah offering, and olah which has been credited to a person, an olah offering which was slaughtered for a designation other than its own, even though it is not credited to its owner, its hide belongs to the Kohanim. Both the olah offering of a man and the olah offering of a woman, the hide belongs to the Kohanim.
Okay.
All right, that's it. And we have Dharam. Okay, base. Declarations, Korban, I shall not eat of yours, Korban, if I shall eat of yours, and not a Korban, what I shall not eat of yours, are not binding. Shavua, I shall not eat of yours, Shavua, I shall eat of yours, and no Shavua for what I do not eat are binding. This is an instance in which oaths are more stringent than the Dharam, which is an instance where the Dharam are more stringent than oaths. If he says Kohanim, the sukkah that I am constructing, the lulav that I am taking, the tefillin that I am wearing, as the Dharam, these declarations are binding as oaths, but they are not binding, and for one may not swear to address to the commandments. There is a nether within a nether, but there is not, sorry, but there is not an oath within an oath. How? If he said, I'm a Nazarite if I eat, I'm a Nazarite if I eat, and he eats and is bound by each declaration, Shavua that I shall not eat, Shavua that I shall not eat, and he ate, he is liable for only one. And terminate the Dharam are treated stringently and the interpretation leniently. How? He said, it is to me like salted meat or wine libations, and if he vowed of heaven, it is binding. If he vowed of idols, it is not binding. If it is determinate, it is binding. It is to me like cherem. If it meant a cherem to the temple, it is binding. But if it meant a cherem of Kohanim, it is not binding. If it is indeterminate, it is binding. If one said, it is to me like a tithe, or if he vowed the animal tithe, it is binding. If he vowed the granary, it is not binding. If it is determinate, it is binding. It is to me like truma. If he vowed concerning the withdrawal from the chamber, it is binding. And if he vowed concerning the granary, it is not binding. If it is indeterminate, the neder is binding, and these are the words of Rameya. Rabbi Yehuda says indeterminate truma in Judea is forbidden in Galil. It is permitted because people in Galil are not familiar with the withdrawals from the chamber. Indeterminate charamim, in Judea they are permissible, but in Galil they are binding because the people of Galil are not familiar with charamim or of Kohanim. All right. If one vow, that was it?
Yeah.
No, one more.
No, that's it.
That's it?
You're about to start hay, right?
Oh, it doesn't start. Hey, yes.
Yeah, so that's the way we stop.
That's it. Okay. All right, good.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
I'm late for
Have
sure.
a great day. Be well. Thank you. Bye.